Okay. Whoa. Sorry about that. Let me make sure everything's in order here. All should be good. Um, yeah. Let me go shut the store real quick. Oh. Yeah. So that's kind of obviously subject to today's stuff. Let me go. I'll probably just goof around in Showdown for a bit. Um, and then obviously before I forget, plug my link in Discord. Yep, y'all can see Showdown. All looks good. I'll queue up. Boom. All right. Um, I'll screw it. Let me pull. What's it called? So I'm not at my normal setup today. Um, this is largely due to the fact that my normal setup place doesn't have power. There we go. And so I'm kind of just operating off of whatever I can see on here and have on one screen at the same time. So yeah, it's called. This is a team well, not stole, but basically I took it from Joey's website. Because I'm too lazy to team build for this meta. Let's see. I'll just lead Lando. This guy clearly doesn't know what to lead. Scarf Chomp's interesting, but if he leads Lando, I want to lead Lando. And I don't really get anything off guard. This just makes more sense here. Oh, sup, Puffer? Yeah, I'll probably go through this battle and then call that my time for everyone to get in here before I start going through everything. But yeah. If this guy just forfeits, we had to. Oh, there. Hopefully he doesn't forfeit. That would be kind of weird. I don't know. Why would you start a battle and then forfeit? Ah, yes. A true meta lead, and now watch as we both click Stealth Rocks. Oh, he clicked Toxic. See, he was feeling dangerous. Now we're in a similar situation, except he has more damage on me. Have I failed and lost this encounter? Most definitely. Real question is, let's see. Has he gone first twice? Yeah. So he'll be faster here. Most likely. I'll just click U-turn. Man's unsure what to do. Yeah, doubled. Or hard switched or whatever. And then I can just go chomp. And I kind of I like stone edging here. Yeah, hits Lando. And then here I can just go Corv fairly freely. Zone's annoying, but I should be able to U-turn. I just realized he had a zone on his team. I'm not gonna lie. Not my brightest. Oh, and the para. Yeah. I guess I just go here and then Dragon Claw. Ooh, yeah, nice little Dragon Claw. And then I don't want to get toxic, but I also don't want to give a free U-turn, so I'm gonna Dragon Claw because this will put him in range of rocks. Yeah, and I got toxic, but that's okay. Now I get to see what he goes into. Subs him. All right, Feeny. Not too worried here. I think I'll go Gengar. Calm Mind, that's fine. I should have minimum scared out. I'm gonna sub here. See what he goes for. Little as you know, I don't have Sludge Wave, so I could just get bodied here. That's easily possible. Now that I think about it, I guess I'd have to trick it from PZ to not get swept. And even then, I think at this point it might be a bit too late. So I guess I'd wait Toxic and try and stall it, but I'm not too worried about it. And worst case scenario, I just sub up till they're cursed bodied on their Surf or Scald or whatever. Yep, they went Scald. Let's see if I can proc that cursed body. Come on. Come on. Okay, what is this? Yeah. Can that not proc curse body? I thought you could proc curse body through sub. I feel like Polt does it all the time. Lame. I guess I'll go here and then just Specs try attack. I could trick it, but I think this will do enough. I should probably know if curse body triggers on sub. Like, I feel like that'd be an important thing to know, especially, as I said, versus Dragapults. But yeah, at this point, Conk technically can maybe do something, barring this Dragonite being still being beat. But yeah. I mean, he doesn't have that many options here. It's Volk and try and Quiver Dance up, which you're eating Specs, Adaptability, Try Attack. Or Kartana if you're Scarf, but even then. And then that's kind of revenged by King Gelder. So, that's not over. But I definitely did not play this well. Or got unlucky with Curse Bodies, however you want to look at it. Oh, I still have this open from when I was trying to copy my little face. What do you call the thing where they show your face? Whoever I was copying that thing from. Like, so I can see it on the slides. Also, good lord. This isn't like some competitive tournament, bro. Just click the button. Not hard. Oh, Life Orb Speed Boost bullshit. Yeah, get out of here. Get out of here. Is Mog Punch gonna hurt? I could Ice Punch. Ooh, that's greedy. That's greedy, but I like it. I'm gonna Mog Punch. Pros and cons time. If he Leaf Blades, I probably don't die. If he goes hard Dragonite and I Ice Punch, it probably doesn't kill. Mach Punch probably does, yeah. Okay, he went this, that's fine. I go Garchomp. You click Psychic, I click Stone Edge. Do I predict? Stone Edge covers. Yeah, I like the idea of clicking Stone Edge. Yeah, he went Zone. Smart guy. Sack Wharf. And then get it in Lando. Yeah, I think I go Lando here. Yeah, I'll go Lando. I just might get greedy. I could U-turn. I actually kind of like that play. But something tells me this guy will get greedy. I don't know. See, I'm shocked he's Life Orb Timid card. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it worked, I guess. I mean, worked is a stretch. The game's not over, but... Interesting. Hard Volk. And then I guess I just eat this. Oh, or just get crit. That works too. And Mach Punch did how much last time? Not enough. Woo. Yeah, I just Dragon Claw. Yeah, actually I just Outraged. Because that might 2-hit KO Mag. Yeah, but I just am sacking it and hoping Dual Wing Mute misses. Okay, what's this BS? I'm Scarf. What? Who let this man get so greedy? Huh. He didn't miss. Alright. Good to know I live that. But yeah. So if that's that. Time to move on to the main event, which is the mock draft. Oh. So this has kind of been like an ongoing project for the past, like, I don't know, 5 days or so. Wouldn't be too long, but yeah. Exactly. So to get started, basically, when I was going into this, I wanted to like simulate as much as I could the perfect draft and kind of like not necessarily what I would want every draft to be like, because obviously not every draft is going to be optimal. And from what I learned from building this, not every draft can be perfect. There's going to be some drafts that you like more than others. There's going to be certain better ones. And one of the nice parts about playing in a league where not every draft is perfect and not every coach is at the absolute peak of competitiveness is you'll get some holes, right? And you'll get certain drafts that are better than others because you're getting 2 or 3 round 1 Pokemon on your team. And obviously that's generally not going to happen for most people. So, yeah, kind of look at it. I kind of broke this draft into 3 phases. This is kind of how I draft teams, and considering I'm drafting every single one of these teams, I figured it'd be a good idea to look at just kind of how I look at a draft. I've obviously talked about how I grade drafts. I did multiple power ranking streams. Go back and watch the VODs. They're on my YouTube. But yeah, basically, the idea of a draft is your first 3 rounds are entirely based around the core, the main function of your draft, right? The main characters, as I kind of put here. You're going to bring them to every match except maybe 1 or 2. Like, occasionally they'll miss one, but for the most part, these 3 will be on every single one of your matchups. These are tier 1s, your top tier megas, and maybe your best tier 2, or even a second tier 1 in most of these cases. And so that's kind of the first round, or first 3 rounds. And here, I'll get a lot more detail into what I exactly look for. But yeah, so that's kind of the main point of the first 3 rounds. The next few rounds, 4 through 7, are where you're going to get your tier 2s and tier 3s for the most part. And these are going to be your supporting characters, probably coming to most of your games. Wait, did I screw this up? No. Yeah, these are supporting characters coming most of your games. But yeah, so not every single one of these is going to come. These are probably like your 6 to 7 times they're coming to the match. Maybe closer to 7 or 8. But ideally, 1 through 7, and occasionally round 11 will be who you're bringing every week. Yeah, actually we'll get to that, and Gren being a bit different. But yeah, so and then we get to 8 and 10, which are your side characters, your one-offs, your spin-offs. These are going to be mostly tier 5s. I'm going to be honest. A lot of these drafts had multiple tier 5s. You want a top-heavy draft in this format. It heavily benefits you when trying to force prep, because if you're 7 mons deep, or 7 mons deep of really hard to prep for mons is significantly more challenging to prepare than 8 to 9 mons deep, except 4 or 5 of them are hard to prep for, and those last 4 are kind of like, oh, I can splash check it with my answer for Infernape. I can also check this other Pokemon, like that kind of thing, where it's checking multiple Pokemon, whereas those core 7 that are just really hard to check, that's going to be your 1 through 7s, and so these are just meant to leave your opponent maybe think twice about it. But for the most part, they're coming to 1, 2, maybe 3 matches for your tier 4s, if you can avoid it. And this also includes some of 11, but then there's the 11, which is your snipe free. Like, for example, if you draft a rain team, you can wait on either Megapert or Pelipper, because if you draft a rain team without those 2, and before someone says Politoed, it's not a real Pokemon, and if you draft Politoed in a rain team, it's a Politoed team, and not a rain team, and it's just bad. So you can either wait on Megapert or Pelipper, depending on kind of what fits your style and how willing you are to work with Politoed, in case you get sniped, or more accurately, how willing you're to work without Megapert, if you go for Pelipper as that option, right? So what's more important to you in a rain team, Megapert or Pelipper? I think a lot of people this gen would agree with me when I say Pelipper. However, in this draft, as you'll see, I personally think I meant Megapert for the rain team. Anyways, so these snipe free picks, you can wait for those. Usually a tier 1 or so falls. But yeah. So that last pick is also a lot of megas are going to go in your 11th round, because after the first however many megas are off the board, in a draft, you should be communicating with the other coaches who haven't taken a mega and try and line it up so all of you are not getting sniped in the mega pick, and all of you can wait till round 11. If that's possible, that's 100% a win for everyone involved, except for the coaches who didn't wait till round 11, because you don't have to. You're getting to select your tier 5s earlier, your tier 4s, your tier 2s, your tier 3s. All those Pokemon are getting selected 1 pick earlier because you didn't have to grab that mega earlier in the rounds. So it's a huge benefit, but you've got to make sure you communicate with other coaches. And considering I am all 20 other coaches, I was really good at communicating with myself on these picks. So we move on to the main characters. So these are the point values at the bottom. You'll kind of see how it breaks down. I'll obviously get to the actual mons that were picked in a sec, but that's the points of each of them. And so I kind of wanted to just look at what was picked. I went with 35 tier 1 picks in the first 3 rounds, which is almost 2 per team on average. You have 9 tier 2 picks, 3 tier 3 picks, and 13 mega picks. Basically, all of these Pokemon that I picked, I think are extremely good in the format. Something you should definitely be borderline bringing every week, and I think are just really awesome picks to have on your team. So, moving on to it, and how you would draft these Pokemon and go about it. Best Pokemon available every single time. You can even double up on types if you're feeling dangerous, but for the most part, like, that's the only thing I would kind of say shy away from. But even then, like, for example, if you get Mega Gallade, or let's say you go Mew first pick, and you go all the way around the draft, and Mega Gallade falls right back to you, you 100% need to, like, pick up Mega Gallade and Mew. Sure, they're both Psychic types, but those are two phenomenal Pokemon, and you should focus on that and dealing with the issues of having two Psychic types later. Obviously, don't draft, like, Celesteela and Corviknight. Like, both are good Pokemon, but, like, you're not going to draft them on the same team. Like, not same dual types, but, like, if they share one type and they're that good, it's worth it. Don't reach. Obviously, Ryan won a championship with Miltank as the round one, so, I don't know if he won a championship that season. Did he? Regardless, he made it probably to the championship, because I think he's made it to the championship all but one season. He's been in the league. But Miltank is not worth your round one. You can wait on a lot of the picks that even if you think they're more valuable. Like most of the tier 3s, the only tier 3s that went, I think, are above and beyond exceptional tier 3s. And even one of them that wasn't above and beyond. Actually, let me phrase it. 2 of the tier 3s, I think, should be tier 2s. The other tier 3, I was talking to Chris about, actually, and I really like this Pokemon for this team, and it's a wheel pick almost. And so, in wheel picks, some of these rules you can kind of bend because you get really solid cores. But regardless, it's a tier 3 pick that I really like. It is at a minimum a top tier 3. So it's okay if you're going to reach in those situations. But just because you love a Pokemon, like for example, Snorlax, you may be a huge Snorlax fan. You should not be taking Snorlax until at minimum 4th round. Like, in these first 3 rounds, Snorlax isn't a top tier 2. Like, even if you think it's a really good one or underrated or slept on, it's not a top tier 2. And you should be going for those tier 1s, or those high tier Megas, or those kind of picks before you go for a Snorlax. You can wait on those picks. And so your personal preference, even if you think you desperately need it for the draft plan, in the first 3 picks, you should not have a draft plan. It should literally just be, all right, I like this Pokemon. I think it's the best Pokemon on the board still. I'm taking it. And that's kind of how you should go about it. So you'll see the first 20 picks are literally, I think, the top 20 Pokemon in draft, and basically in order. But yeah. Oh yeah, the Rampardos. Okay, that game was awesome. But regardless, okay. So, lastly, draft a Mega if you can. Don't go out of the way of breaking these previous rules. And do not plan to wait for your. But literally, like, for example, if you want to get Mega Medicham, you're not gonna be able to get Mega Medicham after round. Honestly, you shouldn't get it after round 2, but after round 3, it should be off the board in every draft, and you should plan accordingly. Especially those tier, I think it's 0-point Megas, so tier 2 Megas. They're not all mated equally. Mega T-Tar and Mega Sableye are not nearly as good as Mega Aerodactyl, Zardax, Mega Kangaskhan, and that kind of crowd. So the good tier 0, and obviously the tier 20 Megas, but the tier 20 Megas, they're kind of they're in the first best 20 mods available. So that's not really a situation where you're waiting on a Mega as your first pick. But a lot of those tier 0s, or tier 2, 0-pointers, you're not going to be able to wait on. So make sure you grab them as quickly as possible, unless you're confident that there's 3 backup Pokemon that if you get sniped, you're going to be equally excited, not necessarily equally excited about, but borderline equally excited about and ready to use, just in case. So yeah, that kind of summarizes how I draft in these rounds. Next, we're going to look at the trends from me drafting in these rounds. And we can kind of look at those 12 non-Mega or Tier 1 picks. To start, 7 of the 12 were Water types. All of the Tier 3s were Water types. Water is by far and away the best type in draft. You can kind of argue that Steel, Flying, Fairy, those are kind of probably in your next 3. But the best type in draft, by my everything I've looked into it, is Water. It's the best type to double up on. Offensively, it's easily top 3, and defensively, it no doubt stands above the rest. Is I think the best defensive type. Actually, take that back. I think Steel might be better defensive, but Water blows it out of the park in terms of offensive power. You have threats like Greninja, Keldeo. Let's see, what are some other ones that are some offensive Waters? Inteleon's another one where it's those Pokemon, they might not be super high tiers, especially Greninja and Inteleon, but they still hit really hard, and you have to find switching. Volcanion's another great example of an offensive Water. But then you also have your Toxapexes, your Mega Blastoises, Suicune, all these other bulky waters that are extremely valuable. My Lodic's another great example. That you can get Slowbro is the perfect example, actually. But before I keep listing more water types, basically, it's the best type in draft. You need to get a good water type. Going out of your way, and I don't know, obviously I said don't reach in the last slide, but reaching for a water type here is kind of okay. The other 5 that aren't water types, 4 were borderline tier 1 Pokemon, 2 were tier 1 last season, and the other 2, I think one was voted on, and the other one might have been voted on as well, but could easily have been voted on, or has been voted on before. And the last one was literally the last pick of or second to last pick of the 3rd round. And when you see the Pokemon, and I tell you what it is, it'll make a lot of sense why this Pokemon was a round 3 pick. So yeah, that's kind of the 12 picks that weren't tier 1s or megas. Tier 1s and megas are obviously the best things in the format, so obviously they're going to go early. I think that's a given. And as you can see, megas went fast. Like, all the tier 1s were gone in the first round. All but one of them was gone, I think, 10 picks in. And, yeah. The good tier 2 megas were gone by the 3rd round. Like, I was trying to find teams that could, like, maybe work one in. Because I personally think you should not wait for a low tier mega. And a lot of the drafts on here that I think are some of the worst drafts waited on that tier 3 mega. And not necessarily by choice. A lot of them were kind of stuck with it just because by the time it got back around to them, especially with some of the earlier drafts, there wasn't really that many good megas that could fit the draft. And so you're kind of forced to go low tier. And so all of those good tier 2 megas, as I mentioned earlier, you can't wait on them. You got to go for them. And 13 megas were taken in the first round, or first 3 rounds, which is a ridiculous amount. And so, yeah, with that, we are going to look at the first 3 rounds. So here is the rounds in order. Team 1 is going to be your far left column, and it works this way. It is a snake draft. So, for example, Dragapult was picked, then Megazam, then Mew, then you all the way down the line to Lando, and then down to Victini. So Landorus and Victini are on the same team, in the same way the Drill next T-Tar are. No shocker, Pult's first pick. I think Megazam is a clear 2 in my eyes, but it's very difficult to use. I could argue Megazam's 1, and I know there's a ton of people. Obviously, you're in other leagues. There's probably in other leagues where Megazam's straight up banned. I think Megazam is extremely powerful in the right hands. I don't know how many people in FPL I trust to handle it, to the point where it's broken and ban ready. And so that's why I think it's probably not Dragapult, because I think Dragapult's much easier to use. And so I think it should be 2. And then, kind of going down the line, you have your Mews, your Torn. I hate Tornadus. I think I took a 3rd this year, and I've already dropped it or traded it or whatever. And it's like, I hate missing, but it's a good Pokemon if you're not afraid to click Hurricane like I am. You got your big three megas, Garchomp, Scizor, Zygarde. You can go down the list and read it yourself. Big thing I want to note, Mega Medicham. I don't know if, like, and honestly a lot of these, because as I said, a lot of those good tier 2 megas, there's a very clear break. I don't know if it needs to be a separate tier or whatever, but like, Mega Medicham is leagues better than Mega Sableye. So I just don't understand, like, the fact that they're in the same tier to me is just mind-blowing. And the same amount of points. But yeah, so first round, literally my favorite 20 Pokemon in draft. I had Victini over Lando, but I was convinced to swap it. But those 2 were interchangeably, I think, 20 for me. Then going back down, you have stuff like Melmetal and Aegislash. And here, you'll notice I basically just went, these are my next 40. Like, Excadrill being the exception, because I think a rule of thumb is you don't draft Sand unless you're on the wheel. And so I had to wait a lot on Drill. And then, because you can draft, let me phrase that. You can try and draft Drill in the middle, but if you draft Drill, for example, if maybe, let's see what's a good team that could have drafted it. I guess Garchomp. The Garchomp team went to go Drill, or the Mega Glade team drafted Drill. You're forced to immediately go with this, like, your Sand setter after. And if someone around the wheels, like, for example, this Dracovish team wanted to go Dracovish T-Tar, yeah. Oh, Megapert in round 2. I think I talked about this earlier in the video, or, yeah, stream. I basically said that if you're going to draft Rain, you only need to draft one of those parts. Unlike Sand, there is really only one good Rain setter, and that's Pelipper. And so you'll never see a draft league where you have two rain teams, two full-blown rain teams, whereas in you can have two full-blown sand teams. Like, for example, I could, in theory, have gone Excadrill, T-Tar on one team, and then, like, Hippo and Dracozolt on another, and that's two really solid sand cores. Um, so you can't necessarily, honestly, yeah, but basically you can have two sand teams in the same league and not have two rain teams in the same league. And if you want to say Politoed can be the main rain setter on a team, I'm gonna have to strongly disagree with you there. And the main reason of that is because if you're gonna pair Politoed with a Megapurt or a Barraskewda, Kingdra is, you can kind of do Politoed Kingdra, like if you wanted that to be your rain core, and then maybe go like a Zapdos or whatever else you wanted at those other picks. But the big thing being Politoed's Grass Week, and so your rain setter, and someone can grief you and pick Pelly, and that's fine. Like, I think Pelly is, I could have easily gone Pelly over Megapurt there. And hindsight, maybe I should have. But in an ideal draft, you're like, see, and you could go like, and I thought about it, right? I could easily have picked Pelly over Megapurt. Yeah, and in hindsight, maybe I would have done it differently. But I love Megapurt, and I think Kamal, I think, tried to use it without rain this season. It didn't work out or whatever. But I went Megapurt here. You could have gone Pelipper. But I think you only need to go one of them, and then you can wait till the end. And the other ones, and if someone wants to grief you and go Barraskewda Rain or go Kingdra Rain or whatever, then it is what it is. But they're missing out on one of the best rain sweepers, in my opinion. And I know a lot of people don't actually love Megapurt on rain this season or this gen. I completely disagree with that take, but yeah. So this kind of was looking up the Pokemon that was tier 2 or below that wasn't a water and or borderline was Rotom Heat. The tier 3s drafted were Greninja, Regular Pert, and I believe Slowking. And honestly, Galarian Slowking is another Pokemon that I don't think made it. It didn't make it in the first 3 rounds. It's probably in the 4th. That is a tier 3 that you could easily have put there. But yeah, honestly, all of these teams, if you look at them, they're just they're just all pleasant to look at. Like, it's really hard to screw up those first 3 picks. Like, if you wanted to sit, like, honestly, all of these, you could go so many different directions with the team, and that's what you're kind of looking for in the first 3 picks. Obviously, there's some that are scarier than others. For example, Galarian, Darmanitan, and Mega Aerodactyl. Maybe not a perfect pairing. Both are rock weak and can't really run boots. But then you grab Starmie in the 3rd round, and so you have one of the most reliable spinners in the entire metagame. So there's some pros and cons to everything. Obviously, when you're drafting a team, you're looking at a lot of different things. But yeah. And so what's it called? For the Zam team, or I'm assuming that's what you mean. Yeah. So I get what you're saying by waiting on card or going over a ghost immunity instead of card. I'm assuming instead of referring to Lele, because I feel like Sam Lele is widely considered an awesome core. In that draft, I'll be the first to admit, I think that draft has one of the bigger issues in terms of, like, I was talking with Chris a lot about this before. Of the drafts that I saw that ended up with the biggest issues, I think it was 15, 2 we talked about a lot. And those were the 15-2, and I think I love 3, but 3 obviously is still a really solid draft. And at the end of the day, all of these drafts are easily usable. But yeah, I definitely see what you're saying there and getting a solid Ghost Resist with this team. But again, you can kind of patch that up down the line, double up on Dark types, stuff like that to fix the issues. But yeah, so that's 1 through 3. I'm going to move on to the next, I guess, 4 through 6. And what's it called? I'm going to have a full draft thing, like, where it shows all the teams at once at the end. So if you have any, like, I guess, suggestions that way, I'm more than happy to pull up the doc after the stream and make a few edits here and there. So yeah, we get your supporting characters, your 4 through 7, tier 1 picks. There's a couple of them in this round, but for the most part, as I said, all your tier 1s are going to go in the first round. First 3 rounds. Mostly the first 2 rounds, honestly. And this round is going to be mostly everyone getting their tier 2, everyone getting their tier 3s, kind of filling those holes. And then here there was 2 mega picks. These are the only mega picks that were in the first 3 rounds of the last 2 rounds. And the main reason they went here is because these are your snipeable megas. I'll get a little more into it later. But the -20s especially are the kind of megas that you can draft, but, like, you're not saving a ton of points, but they can still work on some of the teams that have gone with a lot of tier 3s early or tier 1s early, or kind of in a point situation. But yeah, so you got to make sure you're not sniped, and so you kind of draft those a bit earlier than you would instead of waiting to the end. But yeah, no tier 5s until round 7. I make it a policy of mine to not go for tier 5s until it's literally like last kind of round situation. And the tier 4s here, I'll dive into it a bit on the next slide, or I think 2 slides from now. But all the tier 4s have a specific purpose and fulfill a specific role in the team that made it so they would go in around 6 or 7 kind of environment and pick. So basically through 4 through 7, I focused on types, I focused on speed tiers. Basically, I wanted to make sure there was no like big holes. And earlier, so I'm about to talk about snipes. The big thing with snipes is you're not gonna get you're gonna get sniped. Like, and to say sniped is a stretch, right? Because in the first 3 rounds, you cannot get sniped. I refuse to believe that you cannot find an alternative that you can build an equally as good team as the original your dream team before the draft with the first 3 picks. And so here's where you kind of like, oh, I would have really liked to have maybe Primarina. Maybe you didn't get a Water Farrier with your first 2 picks, and you're like, Primarina would be awesome for my team. And then it goes like 2 picks before you, and you're like, oh, shucks. At this point, you can still kind of work out of it. And so starting in those 4 to 7 round range is really where I guess you'd get the most sniped. But you just need to be flexible. Make sure you have alternatives. And maybe you're like, don't lock into a certain speed tier. That kind of things. So you can still fill those roles. But not necessarily like, all right, I got 3 picks, the next guy has a fairy, but for the most part, I shouldn't have to worry about my Primarina getting sniped. Don't take those risks. Like, make sure your team has a plan in case Primarina doesn't make it to you in round 7. Like, that's how you prepare for snipes in the best way possible. But obviously, it can still gonna sting when you get a Pokemon that you really like taken from your pick before you, or maybe 2 picks before you. Obviously, it sucks, but there's not much you can do. But yeah, basically, tier 2 and 3 picks are gotta be brought 6 to 7 times that season. They're your solid, your core. Make sure you have something above 120, or not 120 necessarily, because in a 20-man draft, it's almost impossible to get every team to get something above 120. But at least something above 115 by this point, because you don't have real speed tiers if your fastest Pokemon is like a Alolan Persian. Because Alolan Persian's going to be running bulk a lot of weeks, and so you're not actually even getting that speed tier. And it's only not gonna come a lot of other weeks, and so then your fastest Pokemon might be like, I don't know, a 105 or a 110, which is just not gonna get you through the weeks. So at this point, you do need to start getting those faster Pokemon to fill those holes. Because in tier 5, I'm gonna be honest, it's Electrode, and like maybe an occasional like another Electro type or Bug type or whatever that gets real fast. But really, you do kind of need a faster Pokemon on your team in order to force speed tier, force your opponent from being able to speed creep you, which I talk about a lot in the how to build a good draft league team. But yeah, so lastly, and obviously for me, it's kind of easy to talk to other coaches because I was every coach in this draft, but see what people are like missing and like kind of figure out what people are looking for. So maybe you can like reach out. Let's say everyone on their team has a really solid fairy. Like let's say everyone in this draft would really prioritize fairy except you and this one other guy. You maybe reach out to him over Discord and be like, hey, what kind of fairies were you looking at? And if maybe they won't say anything, and maybe they'll be real stingy, but maybe they'll kind of give you an idea. And maybe being the first one to reach out and be like, I was looking at Whimsicott, and they're like, oh, I wasn't looking at Whimsicott. Then you can wait on Whimsicott to maybe a round 9 or 10 pick, when otherwise you would have been forced to draft it earlier because you're worried this guy's sniping you. So make sure you're communicating to other coaches. This gets big with megas, and allows you to take a mega at the end of the round. And so yeah. That's basically how I'd focus on 4 through 7. Now I'm going to break down kind of what I ended up picking. All the tier 1 picks were mid to low tiers. Toxapex, Corviknight, Terrakion, Keldeo. And if any of you want to argue that these aren't low tiers, I'd say the best of them is probably Terrakion. That's the one you're going to make the best case out of me with. But even then, I feel like Terrakion's forced into, like, it's too slow to not need a Scar. It's like it's like Cart, but it doesn't do enough damage to run Scarf as much as Cart can. So yeah. That's kind of the tier 1 picks that fell. Most of them went early. I think I took Pex late, simply because taking Pex in a draft league is a dangerous thing to do. It's kind of preppable. Okay, Corv isn't. I wouldn't say Corv is easily the best out of those, because I like Corv, But Corv's issue is you kind of are forced into one like specific kind of Corv. It's like, oh, it's gonna be using U-Turf, Brayford, Roost, Defog. Um, I don't know. I personally don't love it, but I definitely understand why people do. So yeah, and then the tier 4 picks. Obviously, tier 2s and 3s, they're gonna go off the board. All the good ones get taken. But for the tier 2 and tier 4 picks, 10 are either Poison, Dark, or Ground, which I think are the 3 types in Draft League that if you're gonna like expedite it to like make them weaker, not necessarily make them weaker, but like, for example, I listed the 8 or so types I think you have to have on Draft League team. Poison, Dark, or Ground are by far the ones you can do with the low tier. My favorite example of this is Drapion. As you guys know, I love Drapion. It covers Poison and Dark and 90% of my championship teams. Not really, but the last time I won a championship, I had Drapion because I was too lazy to like get a Poison and then get a Dark. And so by waiting on that stuff, you can get it in a low tier and still get a lot of value out of it. And then the 2 that weren't those 3 types were 110 plus in speed tiers. So they're really fast Pokemon that actually hold those speed tiers. And I mean, to hold those speed tiers is correct. Like Jolteon was one of them. Jolteon does not hit that hard, but you still have to run. You have to really consider if you're gonna risk Jolteon being modest. Because even without HP Ice, if your ground type's not good enough, or if your ground type lets in whatever else Jolteon's paired with, maybe they have a Greninja or a Keldeo or whatever, something that's coming in nuking ground types with a water move. You don't want to let Jolteon run modest so it can Oko some random thing with T-Bolt. But basically, either make sure if you're going to reach into tier 4, you're going with something that's filling a crucial speed tier or giving you a key typing. And anyone who wants to say Skuntank is better than Drapion is wrong. But I do love Skuntank as well. It's just like discount Drapion with Defog, but you lose T-Spikes, you get fire coverage, you lose knock. It's very much like a... I see why people like Skuntank, and in points, I will say a lot of the times Skuntank is way cheaper than I think it should be because it does so much roll compression, especially in Avon. So definitely consider drafting it, but I think in tiers, it's not nearly as good as Drapion. So when you're looking at it, it's not worth risking it. And on the Skarm Corv thing, I understand liking Skarm better. And Corv is a Pokemon that's very, like, I don't know. I get liking Hazards. It's a fun Pokemon, but Corv gives momentum and does things that Skarm can't. Whereas Skarm is like... Skarm's more, I wouldn't say more one-dimensional than Corviknight, but you can prepare for Skarm. You can't stop Corviknight from U-turning. Like, you could bring something into Skarm. They're going to have to hard double if they want to get any momentum out of it. Whereas Corv, you bring your Magnezone in on Corviknight, you just U-turn. So, very different Pokemon. Anyways, lastly, the 2 Megas drafted. I think I talked about it a bit. I think it was like Altaria and Mega Aggron. I think they're not under-tiered, but underappreciated in their tier and better than a lot of the other ones. Basically, both of those teams could have gone Mega Alt or Aggron, and so when one was picked, the other one, it was kind of like, I'll pick them both at the same time instead of trying to deal with snipes and who would actually get sniped in a real draft. Because obviously I did want this to simulate a bit of what a real draft would look like. But these are the only 2 Megas that didn't go in the 11th round or in the first 3. And I think they went round 5 or whatever. But yeah, basically, that's kind of what I went through and like picking and what I thought about rounds 4 through 7. So without further ado, here's what was picked. I'm more than happy to go pull up the tier 1 through 3s that I paired them with. In hindsight, I should have. But this is kind of what was picked. Let me actually just pull up the doc. That's going to be much easier. As you can see my fancy sprites. Hold on. I don't want to spoil anything. How do I do this? Scroll. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to spoil anything. Boom. But I think that covers everything. Let me shorten round 1 over here. Boom. Fits perfectly. Y'all can see my rip-off doc. But yeah. So these are the Pokemon I had going early. You'll notice someone pointed out Quillfish. So big thing with Quillfish. I love Quillfish as a Pokemon. I draft it all the time, especially as someone who loves rain. It's a huge, perfect niche on there as a water. It's not with grass. And it can give you T-Spikes, as well as a Swim Sweeper. First draft needed a water bad, and usually I don't like going low tier waters, but this draft had to reach to get that water. And it also being a poison was a nice plus. But yeah, I love Quillfish. Let's see. So, look. Again, we thought about Volcanion versus Arcanine, and one thing I will spoil, Arcanine did not get drafted in this draft, so I know Pierce is rolling somewhere like, why, how could you do this to me, my round 1 Arcanine, and now it's undrafted. Honestly, a lot of it came down to fit. I think it's a good pick, I think it's a good mon, but like, am I really going to call it, like, go out of my way to make sure it's included? There's certain tier 2s that I obviously would, like Cinderace, Infernape, Conkeldurr, the ones that I picked in the first 3 rounds, like those are making the draft, no doubt. But yeah. Also, wasted their round 4. So, round 4, when I was doing these drafts, normally I don't really have many problems finding speed tiers in my draft, because a lot of people ignore them or wait till the end to kind of try and patch them up, and so I can reach out and grab those speed tiers. But when you're drafting against yourself, you tend to draft all the fast Pokemon when you like having fast Pokemon in your team. So I was looking at that team, and I was like, they need some speed, and they need it bad. And I was like, all right, Talonflame. Yeah, and why don't you see Rhyperior? Well, that's a great question. So Rhyperior has this thing called the Rock typing, and the Rock typing makes all Pokemon with this typing significantly worse, especially defensively. So yeah, that's why you don't see Rhyperior. Rhydon stays winning, is the GOAT Pokemon. So yeah. Another thing that I will say, I did not see myself drafting Gligar in the first 7 rounds, or honestly, period. But after looking at it, Pokemon has way too much utility. Stealth Rocks and Defog on one Pokemon. It's like Gliscor Jr. The Toxic community is also lovely. Pairing it with Corv just makes me hate everything. But yeah. Oh, of course. You can 100% trash Talonflame. But I honestly think it's got so much like random utility, it's a lot of fun. Okay, so Team 10 is interesting because I struggled with Team 10 for so long. I was literally like, that was honestly the hardest team, like, or the team I spent the most time on working on. Originally, that Snorlax was a Tornadus incarnate. So I was like, I'll grab a flying type because this team felt slow. And throughout this entire like thing, I was spent like this entire time I was trying to find a Frostlass team. I was like, what team is using this Pokemon? Because I've been looking at, I want to use this Pokemon since it got Poltergeist and it's mixed. I probably am overrating it significantly, but something that can run mixed and spikes and Sash Destiny Bond made perfect sense. And yeah, Chestnut, big thing there as well. It's another great Pokemon. It adds more spikes to this team. Basically, Zygarde, Fini, Rachi felt so perfect that I didn't know what else to do, right? Yeah. I was about to say, round 3 in Chestnut would not have been the move. Like, hindsight 2020, we should have definitely, like, I'm glad we waited, because I think Scizor fits that team much better. And for those confused, Chris did help me a ton with, especially in the early rounds, figuring out homes for team, like, different mons. But yeah, we ended up going Scizor over Chestnut, which I think worked out in the end because I think Chestnut fits really awesomely on this team. Just a solid ground type spiker. And I loved Arrow on that team. But yeah, basically, it was originally Tornadus, but I wanted to fit Aerodactyl, and so I had to make some sacrifices, and I swapped Snorlax for Tornadus because I realized, wait, Snorlax Fini is actually kind of a nice combo. Obviously, they lose out on Rest, but Snorlax can run Thick Fat or Gluttony and not have to really be risk being poisoned anymore. And it's an awesome Ice Resist, number 3 actually. It's funny how you draft Zygarde and then draft 3 Pokemon that resist Ice, 2 of which resist Freeze Dry. Like, it doesn't get much more Ice Weak than that, or more or less Ice Weak than that. Yeah, so Team 5. Team 5 is literally like my child. Not my child. I have a couple teams on here that I think like if I could like actually pilot the teams, I'd have to decide between Team 12, Team 5. I like Team 4 a lot. Obviously the Rain team I'm partial to, but honestly, if I'm being honest, this is not one of my best Rain teams. Um, but that team 16, looks a lot like Cena's team this year, and I also like it a ton. Um, but yeah, honestly, most of these teams I would really enjoy using, but the ones that I really love um, are 5 and 12. Those are probably my two favorites. I also like 8 a lot. But yeah. Yeah, so Team 4 decided that Scale Shot and Hurricane were 100% accurate just for the season. And that Stone Edge from Lycanroc and Magma Storm from Heatran is also 100% accurate. So it's going to win every game. Um, but in all seriousness, because of the accuracy issues, it probably wins like 75% of its games. On the bright side, that Meteor Beam. Oh wait, Meteor Beam is not 100% accurate either. This team. Oh wait, that's the team over. Thank God. I was like, did I really put Nihilego on a team with Tornadus? Because I've missed Meteor. Oh no spoilers. But yeah, I'm gonna move on before I spoil the rest of the teams. But yeah. So far, Team 15 is also something to look out for. I think I salvaged this team towards the end, but right now I was feeling so bad about it. Like, the rock weakness. And also, to be fair, I've made a lot of changes like in between it. Because obviously when you're doing a regular draft, you can't go back and be like, oh, you know what? I drafted let's see. I drafted Arcanine here at like round 3. I'm like, I don't really want Arcanine anymore. Let me go swap that out for something that someone already picked. And then put Arcanine back on the board. But obviously when I'm drafting every team, I can do that. So it made going back and editing these a lot easier and making sure the teams were better. But yeah. So, moving on. Also, it was 4 to 6, not 4 to. Okay, whatever. Apparently, I can't count. Ooh, I do love Team 9. Team 9 is another fun one. The Mega Scissor Rotom Wash combo is also just really fun core. But yeah. So, how to draft these rounds? Did I skip? What? Hold on. Yeah. So I skipped a slide, but yeah. So the side characters, tier 5s, basically, literally half of these picks were tier 5s, on the dot. And then they had 20 of the last 30 were all tier 4s. Basically, you're just kind of filling up stuff. Speed tiers, types you're missing, etc., etc. You'll see I take a couple 120s, but for the most part, I'll explain those, but basically it's like you don't have anything else to pick. I might as well pick it now, especially if it could potentially get sniped in the last round. And then occasionally you have some tier 3 picks where you're like, oh, that could have fit with that team, and that's kind of how those tier 3 picks. But if you noticed, almost all of them are around 8 and 2 are around there, round 9. Basically, it's kind of just filling the gaps at this point. The first 7 Mons is basically what you're prepping for, and these occasionally have a few more that'll be sprinkled in there. But yeah, in terms of how to pick them, basically, don't worry about your tier 5s. If you want to pick meme picks, you can pick meme picks. Grab a spinner, grab a defogger if you forgot, grab a type, maybe grab 2 types. One thing I love to do, if I forget a dark type, I'll be like, all right, I'm going to grab Volibee, and then I'm going to grab an offensive dark, like a Thievul or something, in tier 5. And basically call that patching my holes, or patching my leaks, I guess, because that's some metaphor I decided to use here. Anyways, but basically, yeah, tier 5s are aiming to patch leaks and not like fix things. Like your team might have an issue. That's something you could deal with in a post-draft transaction, or maybe your Mega will fix it at the end if you waited. But if you have holes after the first 7 rounds, you screwed up somewhere along in the drafting process, most likely, and or you're waiting to grab that thing that fills the hole in the round 11. Look, in terms of it's like when in doubt, 2 tier 5 darks is like a tier 4 dark. That's basically the equivalence. And so you might be able to bring one to a matchup where you need a dark type, right? That's kind of the thought process. So yeah, basically, you're not really going to get much out of these rounds, and if you do, it's because you waited it and tried to, knew you were going to get sniped, which is what the team with 2 120s late did. But yeah, so, as I talked about, tier 2s, sometimes you just need to go for it, and you don't want to wait and don't want to risk getting sniped. Exactly, Sneasel Morpeko is another great example. I stand by Morpeko maybe being tier 5, but I think that's going to be a hot take, so I'm going to save it for another time. But yeah. Literally everyone's drafting tier 5s. That's the big thing to take away from it. Like 15 out of the 20 drafts are getting more tier 5s. A good draft, in theory, has tier 5s because you want a top-heavy draft. We're having this discussion in FIFA. Highly recommend joining. It's an awesome league. But basically, the more top-heavy your draft is, the better it usually is. And there's exceptions, especially in tiers. In points, it's almost always true. The more top-heavy the draft, the better. But the more tier 5 Pokemon have, the less tier 4s and low tier 3s you have, and the more tier 1s and 2s you have. So basically, you're going to have a lot of tier 5s, have some personal favorites, have some, like, maybe a meme pick. Like, I love getting Bidoof as my tier 5, just because I'm like, I have nothing else to pick here. I really don't need anything. Let me go Bidoof, or B-Barrel if I'm feeling a bit more competitive. But if you're drafting 3, it's always important to make sure one of those tier 5s is borderline tier 4, because your last 3 picks are, you literally start drafting tier 5s only in like around 8 or 9, depending on if you're waiting for a mega in that last slot. Like, come on, just freaking grab like a like the best tier 5 available. On the bright side, power has returned to my house. Obviously not currently in my house based off the fact I have power, but power is back in my house, which is awesome. So everyone celebrate that. Otherwise, I would have streamed this yesterday, but. So yeah, and those who say Lapras is a tier 1 mon, I don't know if I can change your mind. Your mind needs a lot more than just a little bit of a change if you think Lapras is genuinely a tier 1. So just gonna move on from that one. But yeah, so those are kind of the trends I noticed. Here are the picks. Galarian Moltres is first, like, that and Incineroar. Incineroar falling is, I guess Chris also called that Vikavolt, but there's just a couple mons in that round that are really good value. Rotomo's another one. Like, a lot of these Pokemon, I'm really just looking at it and picking my personal favorites. Most of these tier 5s, if you have a certain combo, or tier 4s and tier 5s, if you have a certain combo that you like, go for it. Zarude, Blissey, and Haxorus are your 120s. Basically didn't know what else to pick, and so that's kind of the route I went. But yeah, so no Granbull and no Zangoose makes it 0 out of 10. I think, look, I love Zangoose. Granbull is just a bad fairy. Like, come on, you can get a low tier wish passing fairy. At least do that. But no, Granbull's fine. I think I have a draft league battle where I'm supposed to use Granbull for like a team thing or whatever. But that's beside the point. Instant is fun. Vikavolt, like, basically that top row is basically all your best tier 4s, some tier, I guess 3s. But then you get into your tier 5s that you love. Like, you'll notice Kecleon's another one of my favorites. I love Volibee. I love Craggle. And obviously some of those aren't tier 5s, but I got my Shedinja, and that's on the rain team. Let me go pull up the full draft. Actually, you know what, before I pull up the full draft, I might as well just talk about round 11, and then I can just have on the slideshow and not have to go back and forth. But basically, we're still around. Let's see. It's basically like tier 5, low tier mega, or a Pokemon that can't be sniped. Like Spectre and Pelipper, both weight picks, Pokemon that can't be sniped. Same with like some of the tier 4s that were in this round. So yeah. Also, the Coco team did not get Lucha. So I am actually someone who thinks Coco Lucha in draft, it's good. And like, you're obviously going to get a lot of value in it. But when you go Coco Lucha, Lucha doesn't hold 118 because it's constantly like significantly faster. So you have to grab something that's in that 110 range that isn't Lucha. And one of the best Pokemon to pair with Coco is like a Latios or a Latias. And newsflash, that's 3 tier 1s right off the bat. So your points are out the wazoo, and you're going to have to draft a low tier mega, which I generally try and avoid in a lot of cases. Obviously, there are exceptions, of course, because as you'll see, some of these megas are still drafted. Yeah, exactly. For example, Abomasnow. Literally, you're taking so much away from your team because you're forcing Lucha, Heatran, and Coco to all be tier 5s together. Like, or tier 1s, not 5s. God, imagine if they were tier 5s. But, yeah, so that's kind of the last round. It's not too complicated. Talk to other coaches. Make sure you have, like, if you want to wait on Mega Beedrill, make sure no one else can really take Mega Beedrill. Wait till the last round. Mega Houndoom is also a Pokemon that I think a lot of people sleep on. And maybe it's because I have never used it and never struggled with it. But don't force it on Sun. It's, what is it? It's got a nice special attack stat and an awesome speed tier. It really doesn't need to be on Sun. Like, obviously, it's not 2-hit KOing Blissey outside of the Sun. But it's a decent enough Pokemon that you can draft it without Sun, basically. But yeah. And it's kind of like drafting Regieleki. It's very similar to drafting Coco Lucha. You're getting so much speed that it's almost not part of your speed tiers. And trying to fill it. Oh, +2 in the sun, you're literally nuking everything. Like, come on. Like, if you could get, like, Torkoal with Big Houndoom, but you're not putting a ton of points into it, and then you don't draft, like, Venusaur and go full sun mode, that's fine. But honestly, the best sun setter in the format, which is Charizard Y, is a Mega. So, and before someone says, oh, draft the Sun team to try it out. No, don't draft Sun. Sun is bad. The only time you should ever draft Sun is if you draft it with Sand. And even then, it's questionable. But Yard is a great mon, but I struggle fitting it, especially with boots. So I did not think Galarian Linoon was draftable. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know what league I was in. Switcheroo, Toxic Orb, Galarian Linoon put in so much work because it's super fast, and it's got quick feet. So once it's poisoned, it's ridiculously fast, and it can run T-Wave and do a bunch of different stuff. So it's just a really good status like Pokemon. And so maybe that person was using. I'm trying to remember who used it. Basically, whoever was using it either made it look way better than it actually was, or it has some actual uses. But for the most part, I do think it's draftable, especially when you need a dark type. And it's a nice normal type as well. Like, at this point, it's kind of like you're drafted, whatever. But yeah. And now we can look at all the teams. You can pick your favorite. We can go work on if there's any teams that you like, any mods you want to incorporate into a team, that kind of thing, where I think it would go drafted. But yeah, here is the overall team thingamabob. And honestly, I'm just going to pull up the other. I'm trying to think. This is kind of like, maybe I should just full screen. I'm trying to think of the best way to get this all on the screen. So, let's see. Maybe I can go like this and just like completely. I guess you won't be able to see some of it because my face will be in the way. But, nah, I'm going to go to the dock. Screw it. And just zoom out one. Nah, but that's not even that much better. We'll go with this. Sure. Let me stretch this column back out so you can kind of see the rounds. But basically, here are the teams. Personally, as I said earlier, Team 5 and Team 12 are kind of my favorites. I think Galar King, I don't know, that team just feels like there's a lot of different, like, if everything feels like it meshes together awesomely, and you still have a ton of offensive threats. And obviously you want me to drop something for Rhyperior. Maybe you could drop Crustle for Rhyperior on this team. But even then, I mean, you're not really Water Weak, so you could probably do it if you were feeling dangerous. But doubling for Crowns, it's not the worst thing on this team, especially with the Water Absorb. But yeah, that's probably where I would swap Rhyperior in. Second to last pick on Team 20, it's Linoon. Regular, not Galarian. Okay, so yeah, that's the interesting part, right? Because obviously normally you're gonna want to pair Spectre with the Conch, and honestly, this team, Spectre was the only tier 1 left that I thought was any good. And I'm gonna be frank, I thought about going Urshifu, Single Strike. I thought about Gyarados. I thought about a lot of different stuff for this team actually, but at the end of the day, it needed a fast Pokemon. And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't love a lot of the tier 2s left either. So most of this stuff is Team 11. Okay, well, we can talk about Team 11 in a sec. But, so yeah, Spectre, it really was mostly we need speed tiers. It forces a lot of prep. You're forcing the Dark type, which, again, you don't have a ton of punish Dark type, right? Obviously, that's why you normally draft it with Conch. But, I don't know. I bounce back and forth on if Spectre is really a tier 1 Pokemon. Because anything hard-walled by a regular bulky normal, and I mean hard-walled, like has no way around it, it's just like your only game plan around it is to double into something. Exactly. If you have a Mega Gallade or a Conkeldurr or Infernape or some other like absolute dark normal shredder, sure, it's worth it. Otherwise, it's whatever. And again, I actually love Passimian a lot. It's obviously not the best fighting type in the world, but it is a solid fighting type that you can fit onto a lot of teams, and I've definitely been swept by it before. I don't remember who it was. It might have been Chris, but somebody swept me with Passimian recently. So your lowest are 11, 3, and 6. Let's look. Okay, so 6, that's interesting, because I actually like 6 a lot. Um, but 11. So 11 looks a lot like K's team from this year. Um, and the big thing with 11 uh, is it's very special. Like there's not really that many physical attackers, right? So Blissey would kind of be a problem for this team. Um, like I'm gonna be frank, like that's probably the biggest issue. However, Keldeo is still really able to hit. Yeah, okay. I'm glad to think that 6 is not crazy bad and everyone is because I really like 6. Um, but yeah, so 11, a lot of special attackers, but you do have some physical options, and it's not like Keldeo's all physical. It's a very much like a balancey kind of team. Um, I will say it's definitely not the best team on this list by far, but I wouldn't say it's bad to the point where it's not gonna be able to compete. As for 3, I think you and I talked about 3 a lot. 3's a big issue for me. Speed tiers. Uh, by the time I'd gotten to like the last like what's it called? Like I think I did the last like maybe round 9, 10, and 11. That kind of chunk of it. I did that today because I haven't had power for the last 3 days. Pitzer is the only thing between I want to say like I don't think it's Mew and Dracovish, but it might be. Like the speed tiers were that crazy. Yeah, it was between Mew and Dracovish yeah, and that's not great. Like the speed tiers are just not awesome. Um, so yeah, Team 6. So I guess if your issue is the only true wall breaker is our slow, well, we do have a slow bro, one of the best trick room setters, but Mega Diancie, I mean, it's not like a true breaker, but like, how many Pokemon do you have on your team that are switching into a Mega Diancie hit? Like, and most of them are bulky waters, which is literally, like, Conkeldurr is gonna eat a Scald. Like, it's one of the few Pokemon physical attackers that can come in and Scald. Yeah, Mega Diancie's just perfect. It's the same with Mega Gallade. It's like they're fast, they hit hard, they can also set up. They're just monsters. Yeah, exactly. As said, Mega Diancie can special wall break. That Moonblast is not really something people want to switch into. And obviously, you can run Plot Rotom Mo if you're really looking for that extra breaker. Um, but yeah, the team's also got solid momentum with Brocorv being just an awesome momentum core plus Cinderace, Rotom-Mo. The double fire type is something that I wouldn't usually do, but Alolan Marowak actually felt really solid on the team, especially with Slowbro being able to set Trick Room. So if I was ever going to do a double fire type, I felt like this was a really good opportunity to. And so I kind of took that and ran with it. A team I'd love y'all's thoughts on is actually Team 7. So one thing I noticed about this team is the only fire resist is Blastoise and Barbaracle. And Barbaracle, the main reason it's on the team actually is because it's a better fire type. Yeah. So, Team 9. Yeah, I love Team 9. Uh, Mega Scissor. So, Mega Scissor for Ferrothorn. Interesting. Oh, wait. Or Team 9, I think you're referring to Team 10 if you're talking about Jirachi. But yeah. While I do understand. Wait. Huh? Wait, but Go-Goat's on Team 9. Hold on. No, you're good. But I'm assuming you're referring to the Zygarde Rachi feeding team. Yeah, Team 10 is very much like a bulky, bouncy kind of thing. Um, I think Mega Houndoom is an awesome, just another thing to break steals alongside Zygarde. It's really just pressures them, and it also breaks bulky grasses, which is the main reason I think it fits the team. And that team's honestly a lot around getting Mega Hound. Like I feel like it's an awesome team to try Mega Houndoom on. So yeah, that's kind of was the main focus on that team. I would really be curious to see how a Team 9 would do because I like it a lot. Like it's a fun looking team. You got that webs with Slurpuff. Like at first I was kind of nervous. Like I can figure out what like Mence Rotom Wash, Mega Scissor felt a bit weird, but I still love it. And I think it'll be fun. Yeah. So again, 7 is another one that I was kind of like interested in y'all's thoughts. Like Steelix can come in on the steel types a lot of the times. So that also helps. The big thing for me with that team, like for example, Heatran, like team's got problems. Like it's just like this team just struggles versus a Heatran. And I'm like I get the steel issue. Blastoise can eat the steel hits. Like, I'm curious what steel types in particular you're like, this team has issues with. Like Celesteela, like a Mega Scissor type. Yeah, I like Team 19 as well. That team also took a lot of finagling with Blissey and Zerud at the end. So yeah, Mega Scissor and Celesteela. Okay, so looking at it, Celesteela is interesting. Um, Obviously, offensive is what you'd bring here. I mean, that's the other thing though. Is if you're running offensive Steela, yeah, you're not. Well, see, that's the other thing though. Is it like a lot of your I guess Pokemon are relying on that lefty's recovery, and that's why I think Rillaboom was an awesome pairing for this team. I think really fits well. Um, like, I don't know. Scissor, I definitely see the issue. You don't have an awesome switch into it. Because obviously Steelix isn't beating it. But you can run like Curse Steelix with a superpower. No, I think Mega Scissor's a definite issue for this team. Looking at it again, because you risk switching it on a dual wing beat or whatever. Corvi and Steela, Toxtricity kind of comes in. Like, Toxtricity has the issue of switching it on Steela EQ. But Toxtricity is nuking both of those Pokemon and forcing it out and just being an all-around nuisance, right? So that really helps with those two. Mega Scissor, I definitely see the issue. And I think it just comes, like, Blastoise can kind of help if you can get a Scald Burn off. I think it's a matter of playing really aggressive, and I think you definitely have to run, like, I don't know. Maybe that week you click a U-turn more often with Rillaboom than you're just clicking. But yeah, honestly, looking at the Mega Scissor team I drafted, you're not bringing Rillaboom. I mean, you maybe bring it for Rotom Wash and I guess Track, but like Salamence and Mega Scissor into Rillaboom is not fun. Yeah, every team is going to have a ground, but not every team is going to have a ground that's also eating a Boom Burst. Like, obviously a lot of teams, like for example, Excadrill or Runegrigus, like those teams are not going to really have a ton of issues with Toxtricity. But like for example, the Celesteela team, Swampert can eat a Boom Burst, but it's not going to do it comfortably. Does it get toxic? I mean, obviously it can probably toxic. Obviously you're going to rather Boom Burst most of the time. But yeah. Mega Scissor for sure, and then obviously Toxtricity has its own plethora of issues. I'm curious what we would swap. Ooh, Melmetal for dude, Melmetal for Single Strike seems ridiculous. Oh. No. So that team, I'm going to talk about Team 19 for a bit. I didn't know what to do like with all the extra points. Because obviously for this team, I went with Rotom Heat as the only basically the only first 3-round pick that wasn't either a water or a borderline tier 1 Pokemon. And then I went Galarian Weezing with the second pick, which is obviously not tier 1 or tier 2. So I had a lot of points to work with. And yeah, basically I got towards the end and I was like, all right, what does this team need? It kind of needs something in between Noivern and Mega Medicham. And like a Rockdade, kind of done that, but I didn't feel all too confident about it, like super holding speed tier. It needed a grass type and a dark type. And so I was like, Zarude works. But then the real question was, I want a Wish Passer for this team, but like, what Wish passes to Melmetal? And the only thing that can Wish Pass to Melmetal is Blissey. And then I had a Galarian Weezing. And Noivern's a fighting resist. And Runegrigus is a fighting immunity. And Medicham is fighting resist. Like, this team had ridiculous fighting resist. And so I was kind of okay going Blissey, knowing that if Conkeldurr comes in, I got a Galarian Weezing. Or if Terrakion comes in, like, Runegrigus is there. Like, there's a lot of the scariest fighting types this team can deal with. And even physical attackers in general. Galarian, Weezing, Runegrigus, and Melmetal is just ridiculously hard to break. I mean, you can probably come up with some random mon that does it. Mega Glade probably does it. Like, come on, the thing's broken. But it's very much, if I'm going to do Blissey and I'm going to do something that passive, that's kind of the mon I would do. And, yeah, exactly. And obviously Zarude is another fighting weak mon, but at that point I had so many fighting resists, I didn't care. Real thing I do notice about this team now is I have Vaporeon. I should really swap Vaporeon out for a better water, especially since I have a Wish Passer. I'm just now noticing it's there. It's double. It's redundant. Hold on. Time to look at the tier list. Because there's no point in having two Wish Passers, especially when they both do basically the same thing. I did not see that I'd already drafted Vape on that draft when I saw Blissey. What water is in this tier that I could use? You could go offensive for Alligator. I could go Gastro. Gastro's interesting. Let's see. What would Gastro look on this team? Oh. Team's ground type is Runegrigus. You could, in theory, go Gastrodon. It's not terrible. I did not draft Chansey. Chansey should never be drafted. Anything that is cannot hit back. Blissey at least can run like a Fire Blast, a Shadow Ball, and Ice Beam. No, Chansey's just bad in draft. Like, that's why I didn't draft Chansey. I really think Chansey's not even close to a tier 2 Pokemon. It's tier 3, and it's not even that good for tier 3. But I'm okay with it being in tier 2 because I don't want to see it. Like, someone's going to lose to a Chansey and think it's some broken thing, when in reality, it can be knocked off. It can't hit back. It is so easy to prep for. Whereas Blissey, you could at least be fearing a Calm Mindset or some random stuff. And I definitely think Vaporeon is another Pokemon where it's very passive, and Flip Turn was huge for it. Don't get me wrong. But, so yeah, Gastrodon's an interesting option. For Alligator, I think I drafted Mantine on a team. Non-Rain Politoed. I don't want to go Sharpedo. I think that's a little too not bulky at all. Tentacruel is redundant with Weezing. So yeah, for Alligator, Gastrodon, or like maybe Sharpedo. What are we thinking? Anybody got any ideas? Double 2 is the same. It's the same thing. It's the same concept. If you're a Wish Passer, you gotta have something that's. Was that on my ladder? Yeah. I'm more than happy to pass. I can send you the PZ Kong team. It's all fun. But yeah. Let's see. Does this team need? Will Feraligatr really help? Speed tiers. Hold on. I actually think Feraligatr would be awesome, just because like right after Rotom, you kind of fall off. So maybe we'll go for Feraligatr. And it's not like Feraligator's so frail that it's not going to be able to switch in on stuff. Like, if I need a fire resist, I have Rotom Heat already. And obviously Blissey eats every special hit. So, yeah. No, PZ is awesome. This one's specs adaptability. It's a really cool set. I think it's like Trick, Nasty Blunt. But yeah. So, this is the mock draft. I'm going to post the link to the mock draft, probably in plugs. So you can just look at this if you want some inspiration for cool team ideas or whatever. I didn't automate much. I'm not good at automating in spreadsheets and stuff. Not as good as I once was. But you can look at it. More than happy to do team building stuff or whatever. But for now, I'm going to call it a stream. I got to upload this to YouTube and then figure out what I'm doing now that I have power back in my house. So yeah. Sweet. I'll post it in general and in plugs. That sounds great. And yeah, thanks y'all for coming to the stream. Peace.